listening to your brain on air. The program will begin shortly. Enjoy. Ακούτε τον εγκέφαλό σας στον αέρα. Το πρόγραμμα θα ξεκινήσει σύντομα. Απολαύστε.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to your Brain on Air. I'm your host, Ollie Vogt Larson, and Congress News Tuesday, ladies and gentlemen. We got some sad news, some bad news, and to sweeten the bitter coffee, we got some good news just to top off before our main story, ladies and gentlemen. Eric Swalwell. We're going to finish up our legacy because apparently I thought he was going to ride out the rest of his term. I thought at least he would have the bravery, or at least the innocence, the true innocence, to ride out the rest of his term. He was elected to serve the people, and apparently he is ditching that. He's ditching all of us. He's ditching the public's fear, apparently. I think he's ready to hide himself away in a hole because of these completely false allegations that apparently are just salacious. Let's get a little bit of a view. Apparently we have two representatives that are set to resign from Congress. Let's hear it.
A Republican and a Democrat just announced they are resigning from Congress over sexual misconduct allegations. The Democrat,
Yikes.
Of course, Representative Eric Swalwell of California, he not only dropped out of the race for California governor, he just announced he's also resigning his seat in Congress.
Damn.
And seconds ago, Republican Representative Tony Gonzalez of Texas also said he's resigning. Now,
Quitters.
here's the thing. Swalwell and Gonzalez aren't the only ones who may be out of Congress before the midterm election. So let's start with Swalwell. He just posted to his social media page saying, "It's wrong for my constituents to have me distracted from my duties. Therefore, I plan to resign my seat in Congress."
Oh,
We need
whatever.
to acknowledge the absolute speed in which Swalwell fell. Just 4 days ago, he was the leading Democrat in the race to be the next governor of California, but bombshell allegations of sexual assault were brought against him by former female staffers. Immediately, he lost key endorsements
Gone.
and support in California. There were calls for him to drop out of the race. By Saturday, the Manhattan District Attorney's Office put out a statement saying it was opening a criminal investigation into those assault allegations because they allegedly happened in New York. By Sunday, the calls were getting louder from Congress for him to resign his House seat.
Listen, I think that if he resigns his seat, there's always going to be a job opening right here at your Brain on Air Studios. You can be a correspondent for us, Eric.
And in fact, many Democrats said they would support a resolution to expel Swalwell from his seat if he refused to step down. Yesterday, Swalwell said he was dropping out of the race for California governor. And today, the House Ethics Committee announced it was opening an investigation into him too. So a short time ago, Swalwell said he was resigning. He apologized in his post, saying, "I am deeply sorry to my family, staff, and constituents for mistakes in judgment I've made in my past. I will fight the serious false allegations made against me. However, I must take responsibility and ownership of the mistakes I did make." He
What
then
mistakes?
went on to say of the effort trying to expel him from Congress that expelling anyone from Congress without due process within days of an allegation being made is wrong. But then he said he would resign, and he will work with his staff in the coming days to ensure that they are able to serve.
If you're not guilty, you have no reason to resign.
District. He did not say when his last day would be. Now, let's talk about Representative Tony Gonzalez of Texas. He just posted to his social media page saying, "There is a season for everything and God has a plan for us all. When Congress returns tomorrow, I will file my retirement from office. It has been my privilege to serve the great people of Texas." Now, Tony Gonzalez has been under investigation for a while by the House.
We're losing legends left and right, ladies and gentlemen. Congress used to be a hall where sacred individuals, like Greek gods sitting in the pantheon, would be able to sexually abuse anyone that they would like. Now, unfortunately, the gods are falling. They are being demoted. They are falling from the heavens. They are just like us. They are being pulled into the mud. It's unfortunate.
For allegations of sexual misconduct, also with a staffer. That woman, sadly, ultimately took her own life. Gonzalez had already
then what are we
said that
even
he would
doing?
not run for re-election, but when the Swalwell thing started to really heat up, the calls started to come from inside the Republican House for Gonzalez to step down now. It's important to know that now that Swalwell and Gonzalez are resigning, the House ethics investigations into them will likely stop, and the committee no longer has jurisdiction over them. But as I mentioned, Swalwell and Gonzalez aren't the only ones who may be out of Congress sooner rather than later. Another Democrat, Representative Sheila Surflewis McCormick of Florida, is on the verge of being expelled. The House Ethics Committee concluded that she violated ethics rules after a grand jury indicted her on charges she stole pandemic relief funds and put them towards her campaign.
Leave her
be.
She
has denied any wrongdoing. And then, of course, there is Republican Representative from Florida, Corey Mills, who is also under investigation by House Ethics over allegations of campaign finance violations and accusations of sexual misconduct and or dating violence. The House will be returning from recess tomorrow, and it is possible we could start seeing some real talk about expulsion for these two congressmen, too. Now, this is serious. It doesn't happen very often. In Congress's 237-year history, there have only been 6 members of the House expelled.
We'll track it as it continues, but if you all need a little bit of joy to lighten your day, as I do, George Santos announces he's going to be a father. Former New York representative, maybe one of the most iconic figures that we've had in Congress in the past few decades. George Santos, podcaster, representative of the Renaissance era, kind of just a man who did it all. He has announced that he and his partner Matthias Gerard are to become parents. Quote, "So we are having kids next year, and that's a big deal for us," Santos said on Meghan McCain's Citizen McCain show. Man, George, I wish you and your husband the best. I wish for you to raise those kids in a nice home. I know that you will only provide them the best, as I know that you have a variety of skills that you can provide them as a father. I know that you are a very giving man. You are a very charitable individual. I believe it's you who owned and operated the Red Cross at one point, I think I saw in your repertoire. You have a very extensive career, and it's just going to service you well in the areas of fatherhood. Ladies and gentlemen, we should talk about some of the latest news. We're going to talk about the Strait of Hormuz, and we're going to talk about President Trump. He deleted this post depicting him as Jesus Christ. He said he thought it depicted him only as a healer of some variety. And has anyone debated about whether or not he is really Jesus Christ? I think he might be, but that's besides the point. Let's finish it up. Go ahead. Oh my goodness. If you don't know about the digital firestorm that is erupting on political and religious worlds that are colliding this morning, President Trump, he deleted his controversial social media post that appeared to depict him as a Christ-like figure. He's got this kind of AI-generated image where he's in this Jesus robe. He's got the red thing across his chest. He shared it Sunday on Truth Social, and it showed the president in a flowing white robe with a red sash, placing a glowing hand on the forehead of a sick man in a hospital bed. The scene, which was packed with patriotic symbolism like fighter jets and the Statue of Liberty, drew immediate and fierce condemnation from even some of his most loyal and religious supporters and vehement people that were just like, we don't love seeing you. This is like, imagine in China, Xi Jinping, he posts a picture of himself squatting under a tree, and he's like, "I am Buddha returned." They labeled it as offensive, blasphemous. The president removed the image Monday morning, but the explanation that followed only added to the chatter. Speaking to reporters at the White House, Trump denied that the image was meant to be religious, claiming he actually thought that it depicted him as a doctor, quote, making people better. Bullshit. While Vice President J.D. Vance attempted to frame the post as, quote, a joke that people simply don't understand. Sure, the backlash from prominent evangelical and Catholic influencers suggests that it might, many in the religious right, the comparison crossed the line that no amount of political humor could fix. You can't just ha-ha this one away. He's been alienating the Catholic audience. He may, in fact, be the first Jewish president, according to Mark Levin. I think he might be right about that. He's been waging war with Pope Leo. We've been talking about that. This controversy unfolding with him where he got into the tirade with the first American-born pope, called him weak on crime, terrible for foreign policy. The friction is mainly stemming from his condemnation of the U.S.-Israeli war effort in Iran. He's saying that it's like, if you're wrong to be on the side of people who drop bombs, all these sorts of things, there's a delusion of omnipotence in global leadership. He's warning against that. President Trump accused the pontiff of, quote, catering to the radical left. The pope has remained firm, telling reporters aboard a plane to the papal plane to Algeria. God, he has no fear of the administration and will continue to preach the gospel's message of peace. Very, very curious. Let's look at this from a clip from ABC
this morning,
News.
Many of the president's supporters furious, calling this picture that Trump posted appearing to depict himself as Jesus blasphemy. Trump took the picture down, but is defending the post, claiming he thought it showed him as a doctor.
Mr. President, did you post that picture of yourself depicted as Jesus Christ?
Well, it wasn't depicted. It was me, I did post it, and I thought it was me as a doctor.
The president insisting.
It's supposed
What doctor has ever worn this garb? Except you can maybe argue that it's like a Greek design, but very evidently, it's you're in the clouds. I don't think that is a very Greek
to
atmosphere.
be me as a doctor, making people better, and I do make people better. I make people a lot better.
But the vice president saying something different.
I think the president was posting a joke, and of course he took it down because he recognized that a lot of people weren't understanding his humor.
It comes as the president is bashing the Pope.
He was very much against what I'm doing with
Ronald Reagan was a very funny president. He was revered as having a good sense of humor, but he never, as far as I can remember, did anything along the lines of depicting him as a Christ-like figure. It's actually all of his supporters who began to evangelicalize and suggest that he should have sainthood, all that sort of stuff. It's his supporters who put him up on that pedestal. It was never himself. It was never his office putting out a publication that was Ronald Reagan healing the ill.
with regard to Iran, and you can...
And what doctor, by the way, what doctor has ever healed anyone with their hand on the forehead? What are we doing?
not have a nuclear Iran. Pope Leo would not be happy with the end result.
The first American Pope has been outspoken against the war in Iran, calling Trump's threat to wipe out a whole civilization truly unacceptable.
Attacks on civilian infrastructure is against international law, but that it is also
What is
a
international
sign
law?
of the hatred, the division, the destruction the human being is capable of.
Trump firing back, calling the Pope weak on crime and terrible for foreign policy, adding, "I don't want a Pope who criticizes the President of the United States because I'm doing exactly what I was elected in a landslide to do." But the Pope says he's not afraid of Trump.
I have no fear of neither the Trump administration nor speaking out loudly about the message of the gospel. And that's what I believe.
He's standing by his comments.
I am called to do what the church is called to do. We're not politicians. We're not looking to make foreign policy, as he calls it, with the same perspective that he might understand it. But I do believe in the message of the gospel. Blessed are the peacemakers. It's a message that the world needs to hear.
Trump now facing widespread backlash. American Catholic leaders condemning his comments. Bishop Robert Barron, who sits on the president's own Religious Liberty Commission, calling them entirely inappropriate and disrespectful. And he says Trump should apologize. But President Trump is not apologizing to the Pope or for posting that picture. Now, all of this comes as Pope Leo is now on the second day of his 11-day trip through Africa. Today he's in Algeria, the first Pope to ever visit the Muslim-majority country, George.
The Muslim-majority country, George. What is happening in the Strait of Hormuz? Should you be nervous about it? Oil prices, they're going to spike. We're going to run out of the ships that are on their way from there on right around the time around this month. There's a push to resume talks with Iran. I doubt that that's going to occur. We're going to go ahead and blockade it. What are we hearing about
We're
it?
joined by CBS News senior foreign correspondent Elizabeth Palmer in Tel Aviv. So, Liz, we're coming up on 24 hours since the U.S. imposed that blockade.
She's
on
in
the
Tel
Strait of
Aviv.
Hormuz.
What does she know?
What kind of impact is it having?
This woman is at a hotel right now. She just got up from a brunch. She is 4 mimosas deep. She can barely hold together a sentence. You can tell through her eyes. They look a little tired.
Well, it's kind of confusing. Bottom line is 4 ships have gone through the Straits of Hormuz in the past.
Gone through the Strait of Hormuz. I told you, look at that, she's slurring. When you're in Tel Aviv, you're at the Marriott, you're doing, you're doing brunch with your camera crew and whatnot. You're getting some of the seasonal sausage and whatnot. You get the pancakes and you get all of that sort of stuff. You get a coffee and you get a few mimosas. And now, unfortunately, they're saying we have to update people on the Strait of Hormuz. You have to string together all of this very coherent information. You have to figure it all out. And regardless of whether or not you can even walk straight, you need to be able to explain to people like a really deep foreign policy. And she's figuring it out.
To break the U.S. rules, they loaded up. And
Look at this. She's so fucked up right now. Let's just actually. I'm gonna let you guys just hear her words all the way straight. Tell me I'm not wrong. Tell me I'm not right.
Have gone through the Straits of Hormuz in the past hours that appear to break the U.S. rules. You know, they loaded up at Iranian ports. It's probable that they paid this Iranian toll, and yet they were able to sail free. So it really calls into question what this blockade is for.
What this blockade? Oh my God, guys! Oh my God, this is hilarious.
So it really calls into question what this blockade is for. It could be too easy. I don't know if you remember the blockade on Venezuela when some ships were chased across the Atlantic before.
She's getting a phone call from her boss right now that her agent is having to take, and her agent is like, I know, listen, you cannot send her with the company card, otherwise she's going to go crazy. She's going to, the drinks are basically going to be complimentary at that point. She's going to go deep.
They were stopped, so maybe it's just too soon, but at the moment it looks as if oil is flowing and the U.S. Navy is not stopping anybody from traveling. The immediate effect, of course, and this will benefit President Trump, is that the oil price hasn't shot up to above $100 a barrel. I just had a look before we began to speak, and it's hovering just under. But there are really serious consequences. The IMF yesterday warned that the whole world will go into recession if the high oil prices persist and even rise. So let's watch to see what happens in the next hours and days. But I have to tell you right now, I'm confused.
She is giggling like, I have to tell you right now, I'm confused. Yeah, it's because you are schmasted.
Hours and days, but I have to tell you right now, I'm confused.
I'm sleeping off a gummy.
Important context, because I was also looking at the price of oil, Liz, and I wasn't seeing it jump as expected, but you know, the sort of analysis that you gave there, that makes a lot more sense. I also want to ask you, Israel and Lebanon are set to hold talks in Washington today. I mean, are there any expectations you're going to see a breakthrough without Hezbollah at the table?
In a word, no.
These
are historic negotiations. The two sides haven't met directly for many years, and they will be supported by the Secretary of State and old hands from the State Department. But the fact is that Lebanon and Israel kind of agree. They would both like Lebanon to control all of Lebanon and not have this sort of this usurper, this militia group that actually...
Okay, no, this lady's bought out. She's Israel core. What I want to say is that they're perfectly fine with this conflict in Lebanon. Let me tell you this. The Israelites, many people, they will go, oh, they just want no conflict. They don't want any of this. Sure, I agree. The Israel people maybe don't want this, but the Israeli government, however, they are absolutely comfortable with an insurgent group in Lebanon that they then would have to deal with. Do you know why this is? Because the moment that you can justify pushing onto another territory, you think the United States didn't use that to justify the war with Mexico, territorial acquisition. They said that Mexicans were fucking with a bunch of people. Boom, suddenly Californians are all Americans. You know what I mean? What I'm trying to say is that this is to a degree about territorial expansion. This is what it's about. It's what it's always about. If you don't believe me, folks, there's more evidence than I can even show you right here. Let's look at this video from 2024 showing Israeli soldiers in the occupied West Bank, shared by South Korea's president. It's triggered a sharp diplomatic clash with Israel. This shows them throwing bodies off of a roof.
This video just triggered a diplomatic clash between Israel and South Korea. Disturbing images from 2024 shared by South Korean President Lee Jae-myung, appearing to show Israeli soldiers on a rooftop in the occupied West Bank, kicking and dragging bodies across the roof, throwing at least 3 over the edge, one after the other. Israel says the operation targeted militants. President Lee's post says, we need to check if this is true, and if it is, we should find out what measures were taken. He then said there was no difference between wartime killings, the Holocaust, and Japan's sexual slavery of Korean women. Israel's foreign ministry is calling his remarks unacceptable, including the trivialization of the massacre of Jews on the eve of Holocaust Remembrance Day, and accusing President Lee of digging up an old incident and presenting it as current. before later clarifying it happened in 2024. At the time, the Israeli military called it a serious incident that does not coincide with IDF values and was under review. CNN reached out to the IDF to ask if any actions were ever taken against the soldiers. Under international law, militaries are required to treat bodies with dignity and return them to families.
This is, listen, not only are you probably feeling this in Mukwonago, Iowa, not only are you feeling this in Al-Karim, Libya, or some shit. You are feeling this all the way, even in the pastures and prairies of Ireland. Chaos has erupted across major roads in Ireland as farmers are protesting the rising fuel prices and empty gas stations, which are tied to in part to the U.S.-Israel war in Iran. They are blocking up a lot of the traffic, basically the arteries of their country, the roadways, all of it. They are blocking it up with their trucks, anything they can get their hands on. Let's take a look at this clip.
This man appears to be walking to the airport as tractors block roads across Ireland. Farmers and hauliers across Ireland have been protesting for 4 days over soaring fuel costs. Convoys of tractors have clogged major roads across the country, from inner-city Dublin to fuel depots that supply much of the country. And it's caused chaos. At least 250 service stations had completely run out of fuel on Friday, an industry body told CNN. Now, the government has even asked the army to be on standby to help clear blocked roads amid concerns that emergency services could be delayed. Protesters say rising diesel prices are pushing them to the brink, and that government measures to cut fuel costs haven't gone far enough. The price hikes are tied in part to the war in Iran, which has disrupted oil supplies. This man
Okay, so what we're looking at here is they're looking at turning the military against their own people. I totally understand. Listen, you're concerned about maybe ambulances, police won't be able to navigate. Sure. I really hope that we don't see an incident of an eruption of them beating farmers up. No one wants to see that. Everybody is comparing this time to the 1970s oil crisis. The world has already experienced this scenario where oil has become scarce. Many people, probably if they're older, remember the plunging global economy chaos in the 1970s. Significant oil crisis originating in the Middle East caused oil prices to skyrocket, leading to a widespread economic disruption. Historical events, everybody remembers this is where we got daylight savings, all these sorts of things. Let's actually, we have a clip about it. Let's play that.
What happens when the world runs out of oil? We don't have to guess. It already happened. Back in the 1970s, a crisis in the Middle East sent oil prices through the roof and the global economy into chaos. Sound familiar? The impact was felt everywhere. In the US, President Nixon told people to turn their heating down to 20 degrees Celsius. Businesses cut work hours, and police even stopped routine patrols to save fuel. Instead, patrolling on foot. Daylight saving was even introduced to conserve energy. In the UK, driving was banned on Sundays. Australia rationed fuel. You were only allowed to fill up on specific days based on whether your number plate ended in an odd or even number. And in India, even the Prime Minister used a horse-drawn carriage to get around. When oil prices surged, everything else became more expensive. Now, for decades, the US has had two key priorities in the Middle East: protect Israel's security and keep oil flowing through critical routes like the Strait of Hormuz. After the repercussions of the 1970s oil crisis, the US wanted to ensure it never happened again, carefully balancing those two key priorities. For years, leaders resisted actions that could threaten oil supply, even when pressured to prioritize Israel's security, until recently.
Which is it's a very fun time to be alive, ladies and gentlemen. Speaking of a very fun time, we're talking about the future fun times to be alive. Vance or Rubio 2028, a lot of people are asking the question. Wall Street Journal has recently put out an article talking about it. Trump, he's asking the question to a lot of cohorts, people around him. He's going, I got two retards, I gotta make the choice within the next couple of years. I think right here, the best possible choice, I'm saying that maybe between the two of them, if you have to choose, you can go another route. You can go maybe Nikki Haley. You could go some fucking out there route. But I think that these are the two most realistic options as we see it right now. Rubio is he's old school, and I think that he's exactly what the Republican Party needs to pivot towards in a weird way. Listen, Vance, he's clumsy. The beard just doesn't sell it. It's not something that a lot of people feel comfy with. It's something that actually a lot of people look at. They feel grubby. They feel you're smarmy. They feel like you're a bit of a thief, that you could get away with things easier. Beards don't communicate in many people's minds a trustworthiness. They communicate a layer between yourself and the world around you, which I think maybe is one of the reasons that nobody really connects with Vance on a deep emotional level. Rubio, although he is kind of this one-note figure, he's very sort of blasé type of a guy, you know. I still say that he has a bit more personality than Vance. I think that he's the guy in 28, but who knows? According to Trump, he's still actually making it's an open debate, according to him.
2028 presidential election may be years away, but President Trump is already looking for a successor in pitting his vice president against the Secretary of State. For months, President Trump has been polling his friends, donors, and other influential Republicans about the strengths and weaknesses of Marco Rubio and J.D. Vance. According to people who have spoken to the president, he has shown increasing fondness for Rubio. Speaking to governors in February, Trump called Vance, quote, a brilliant guy who can be a little tough on occasion. Trump described Rubio as, quote, the opposite extreme, adding Marco does it with a velvet glove, but it's still a kill. The president's focus on foreign policy in his second term has put the Secretary of State at the center of all that action, raising his profile. Trump often turns to Rubio for advice, according to people who have spoken with him. The president's advisor says he hasn't made up his mind on who to embrace as his heir. Now the war in Iran has sharpened the debate within the GOP. It's a potentially defining moment for the conservative movement. It could either elevate the populist anti-intervention stances that Vance represents, or return to the more conservative, traditional foreign policy views that Rubio holds. Rubio has said both publicly and privately that he wouldn't challenge Vance if Vance decides to seek the nomination. Spokesman for Vance and Rubio declined to comment.
Okay, what's the move? J.D. Vance has no aura, he has no aesthetic, and as many people have already termed it, he would be mogged if Gavin Newsom were to be the nominee for the Democrats. He just wouldn't have the chin strength to stand up. And I'm not saying that Rubio would be any better. As a matter of fact, I think Rubio is a little more subhuman than Vance in many ways, because when it comes to Vance, he has the beard, which in some way gives his shape definition. It actually gives him a little bit of something to work with. When it comes to Rubio, he's dealing with a naked face that still manages to look bad. And not to say that J.D. Vance's naked face looks any better. It's very chubby, it's very whatever. But admittedly, the beard, he goes with it. I'm not saying Rubio should try a beard. I'm saying that his ears are too long. I'm saying that there's issues that not even a beard will be able to fix. There's a trollness aspect. There is a bit of a elfiness to his look that a lot of people don't really notice or comment on too terrible much, but he's like he's got a tiny little fairy man, a leprechaun kind of aspect to him. I'm just trying to point out and categorize why I think that he doesn't neither of these guys have the looks. Neither of these guys have the aura department covered. So how does it look for the Republicans? They're probably going to lose. Who knows? We don't know where anything's going to be in a few years, but I do know where apparently some things are going to be, according to this dire warning from the Minnesota hospital industry. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. Smooth transition to our second story. I should probably play the music. Go. The state's hospitality industry, man. The hospitality industry has reached a critical breaking point. If you don't know, Minnesota, according to the State of Hospitality report released just this past Wednesday, the joint study from the Hospitality Minnesota and the Minneapolis Federal Reserve paints a dire picture. They're describing the sector as stressed on the brink of collapse. More than half of all restaurants, hotels, and tourism businesses across the state reported significant drops in both foot traffic and profits over the last year, with major hubs like Minneapolis, St. Paul, and Bloomington seeing an industry-wide contraction of over 4%. Industry leaders are pointing to a perfect storm of economic pressures that are making the current business model unsustainable. Operators are being squeezed by the combination of surging wholesale food prices, rising labor costs, and the tightening of a web of local metro regulations. The financial strain is particularly acute in the Twin Cities, where recent data suggests that the Federal Immigration Enforcement enforcement operations earlier this year. Specifically, Operation Metro Surge, as we've been covering, may have inadvertently dealt a heavy blow to the labor pool. Listen, now you gotta hire Americans. That's my personal opinion. Sorry, I know it sucks that they demand a living wage, but whatever. It's because they're actually legal, contributing to the loss of over 3,300 food service jobs in January alone. Yikes. Oh, the warning from the Hospitality Association is more than just a call for help right now. They're on a sinking vessel, according to them. Leaders are arguing that the state and lawmakers are to consider immediate relief measures, such as exempting small businesses from certain service fee regulations and addressing high credit card interchange fees that can eat into razor-thin margins. Without swift intervention, the reports warn that the state risks a permanent hollowing out of its local backbone businesses, which could lead to thousands of job losses and significantly diminish the quality of life for communities that rely on these social economic hubs. Let's get a little bit out of this from KARE 11. My favorite, is it mid-sized? It's a pretty big news team out of Minneapolis, Minnesota.
Good evening. Thanks for joining us at 5 on air.
Hey, you're
and
welcome.
streaming on KARE 11 Plus.
You're
I'm
welcome.
Julie Nelson.
Hi,
And
Julie.
Lauren Lamanchek. Minnesota's hospitality industry is sharing a dire warning tonight. Economic conditions in our state are not sustainable, and businesses are feeling squeezed. Leaders in the nearly $9 billion industry say they are nearing a breaking point and now need help from state lawmakers to stay afloat.
Do you really?
But there is a silver lining. A boost for restaurants, specifically, is on the way.
Really?
In coverage tonight, Gordon Severson has more on the Michelin Guide coming to Minneapolis. But we begin with Jessica Hart, who's taking a closer look at the state of hospitality. Jessica?
Julie, this wasn't the update the hospitality industry wanted to give. They say there are fewer hospitality jobs in hotels and restaurants, and business owners are more pessimistic about their future. When times are tough,
I'm making a family meal right now, and we're just gonna do some pasta.
Chef Yubang leans on hope.
It's been kind of like hit after hit after hit.
He knows business ebbs and flows, but in Minnesota, it's been a rougher chop than usual.
And this industry is at its breaking point.
Angie Whitcomb is the president and CEO of Hospitality Minnesota.
The data in this report goes back years. It shows trends that started in 2020 and are getting worse every year since.
A survey conducted by Hospitality Minnesota shows 50% of hospitality businesses saw profits and foot traffic decline. A big drop-off for an industry that employs 230,000 people and generates nearly $9 billion for the state's economy.
These aren't faceless corporations. These are family businesses, neighborhood restaurants, independent hotels that have survived a pandemic and are...
Yeah, but most of these independent hotels, let's be honest, I understand that we like to call them independent hotels. They are being subleased or they are being overcontracted by these larger companies like a Marriott, a Hilton, or whatever. Most of them, if they are above 3 stories, they are likely not locally owned.
Still fighting to keep their doors open and their people employed.
A fight, Whitcomb says, Operation Metro Surge made harder.
The hospitality industry in Minnesota is stressed and on the brink.
Even on the brink, hope isn't lost.
Regardless of what the condition of our atmosphere is, our environment is, there's always just been this sense of hope within our community, within the restaurant community, within the food community. We have to have that. Because if we don't, then what are we doing here?
Hospitality Minnesota says lawmakers need to take action this session. Whitcomb says there's a, quote,
What do you want them to do? Buy a burger? I understand. Take down regulations. It's choking our industries. KARE 11 News, ladies and gentlemen. They actually give us a lot more than just this. They give us a lot more about local news, about Minnesota, stuff that's affecting us as Minnesotans. Speaking of which, KARE 11 investigates. They put out this thing recently that is reporting that disabled Minnesotans are being abandoned after their care providers are disappearing amid the fraud probes.
There's feces everywhere.
Exactly.
A Medicaid-funded care provider, under investigation for fraud, vanishes.
And they just disappeared, never showed back up.
Months later, we looked into what and who was left behind.
This was a vulnerable person who clearly wasn't getting help with their living situation.
Exactly.
Just a filthy apartment.
In this St. Paul apartment building, amid the debris.
So it looks like they left a bunch of their records here on the floor.
A paper trail that reveals the company under investigation for fraud was getting $522 every single day from taxpayers to give this person care.
That's pretty incredible. That's insane.
That is a Gucci handbag every week. You could a few of them actually every week if you really space it out.
Also left behind.
Hi, how are you? I'm AJ.
Vulnerable people with disabilities living in the fallout, including a 7-month-old baby girl surrounded by uncertainty, despair, and fear.
I'm scared. I don't want to be out in the streets with my baby.
Everyone here told us variations of the same story.
I'm lost right now. I don't know where to go. It's pretty bad.
Meanwhile, just down the road in the gilded halls of power,
can we get assurances of continuity of care?
top human services officials promise they're doing their best to ensure clients of Medicaid providers accused of fraud get care.
We are working very hard at DHS on continuity of care.
But in these halls, we found no staff, no help, no care.
I feel used, I feel violated, I feel worthless.
I'm sure you do. That sucks, ladies and gentlemen. Well, at least Minneapolis, St. Paul's getting something. They have CannaFest. Jesus Christ. Okay, one thing that I'm really hating about weed being legalized in Minnesota, listen, I understand many people it's great about, it's more accessible for medical uses, recreationally it's very fun. I love the fact that it's just making more people be comfortable around it as a concept. I hate, though, the casualization of everything. The moment that it becomes less of a niche thing where it's like, okay, we're going to go smoke and then maybe we're going to like watch a movie, we're going to do something together, we're going to have fun, but like the moment that we publicize it, the moment that you go, we're all smoking weed, man, but you're doing it in like a way where you're like, okay, cannabis festival t-shirts, what are we doing, ladies and gentlemen? I don't want... Weed used to be a cool thing, and now it's becoming a goy thing. It's becoming a beer thing. It's becoming a thing where it's very much like you're in a crowd of people who also all like weed, and you all just like hang out together. I don't want it to be a social thing. That's what I'm trying to say. It may be social in the context of like 4 people, but if you're going to a festival, who wants to smoke and be around other people? Isn't that like your worst nightmare, to walk around a crowd of people you don't know, who are just as high, who are just as focused on details, focused on how everybody's moving, focused on everybody's little things, everybody's checking each other out, it's freaky, it's like everybody's paranoid, everybody's nervous. Let's just, okay, what is this? CannaFest 2026?
CannaFest is Minnesota Monthly's cannabis-related event. It's April 16th, this Thursday, at the Lowlands in St. Paul. And it's where you'll find educational sessions, all these trusted brands.
Everyone has a nose ring. Every dude has long hair and like it's tied back and has facial hair that's like douchey looking. Some of them have soul patches. They are like passing out, we got our weed chocolates, man. I hate weed culture. As a person who indulges in weed regularly, I'm saying I hate weed culture. I hate it, hate it, hate it, hate it, hate it. Because listen, it can produce either one of 2 extremes, the most interesting or the most baseline people you've ever met in your life. People who, they smoke weed and they don't talk about anything interesting. They don't go anywhere interesting with their mind. They just like slouch out on the couch and they just they like to watch, Bill and Ted or some shit. They like to watch Harold and Kumar, man. And they just like to eat I hate people who use the term munchies. It's the most annoying. I hate stereotypes. I'm sorry. The stereotypical stoner shit is the most annoying. I'm sorry. It's the most awful archetype of person. Be interesting. Listen, weed already dulls you as a person. It already makes you less interesting than you already are. So try to, when you smoke, expand your personality. Be interested in the things that are out there. But here, as you can see from this fucking soul patch having this ginger here, It's like, it's a patch of like people who all have cankles, people who can't see their feet, you know what I mean, when they look down. It's like people who they should be doing the weed instead of drinking alcohol, but instead you see people who are double fisting THC drinks and alcohol. It's like, well, you're losing the point. The point is to do weed so you can ditch the calories, whatever.
Find educational sessions, all these trusted brands, and it's a really safe space to do sampling and to ask questions and to really, Oh
my God. The moment that weed started getting little seltzer drinks, I like a little 10 milligram, I like a little peach seltzer. This one is beach carumba. This one's got like, I hate IPA culture. I hate like people who are like, I want to drink something that's just like a little fruity tonight. I just want to we can do like, should we do a lineup? They do, what is it called? A flight. Should we do a flight? A flight? Oh my God. We should do like 6 different IPAs. Okay, if you're doing like whiskeys or something, sure. Do a tasting or whatever, but like IPA culture, but like beer culture. I'm sorry, beer is beer. Wine, sure, there's subtleties, there's whatever. But you make beer out of barley, wheat, all of it tastes like piss. It's regardless, it all tastes like piss, but it's delicious piss. It's good, it's tasty, but it tastes all the same. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm just saying it. This is diluting the culture that weed once had.
curious, kinda curious, that's the place you're going to want to be.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you're kinda curious, let's learn as people who are engaging in it that they cannot prove a marijuana DUI. They are currently working on breathalyzers. If you don't know, they're working on them. They're in the early testing programs of companies that are going to make deployable ones that the police are going to be able to pull out. They're going to be able to jam it in your mouth, and they're going to be able to pull you in for any given reason just because you had a hit of your buddy's vape pen. Well, folks, let's do our best to, until that time comes, avoid any DUI for marijuana. Let's get a little advice from Patrick Something Law.
There's no breathalyzer for marijuana. Here's what police will do instead to infer that you are impaired. Unlike an alcohol DUI, for a marijuana DUI, there's no roadside breathalyzer to be used as of right now. But I do know for a fact certain companies are in the process of developing a marijuana weed detector. It's in the works, and it's scary. Here's how they try to get to impairment. Since there's no roadside breathalyzer, they're going to try to use the failed sobriety test, aka monkey see, monkey do. They're going to try to infer that your inability to do these tests means that you're mentally impaired. Here's the kicker. These failed sobriety tests have never been approved by NHTSA to say that their use can indicate a person is impaired by marijuana. And they're going to use the same tests that they do in alcohol. Here's what I say in my marijuana trials. Weed in your system measures concentration. It doesn't measure impairment. And you know what? I get the state's government expert to agree to that statement because they know that the number of nanograms of delta-9 THC, the carboxy or the hydroxy in your system is only a concentration level. They cannot say that this concentration level means that you're impaired. Unlike an alcohol DUI, they can say 0.08 means you're impaired, not in a weed case. Folks, that's why, in my opinion, a marijuana DUI is a lot harder for the prosecutor to win a trial, especially against a guy like me. Do you think any level of marijuana in a person's system means they're impaired?
Folks, let's just remember that, replay it, save this video, whatever you got to do. That is just good information that you always got to hold on to. Folks, millennials, Gen X, whatever you want to call them, they're drinking their weed. They're not smoking it like the OGs tend to do. You bring out a bong and a lot of these people, they get shaky. They're either like, we should do a joint, or they like drinking the weed, because drinking the weed is so much more gentle. Gently speaking, as in like, it's gonna wipe you out because you're basically introducing it into your liver. You're making your body filter it that method, not through your lungs. So it's gonna be a whole different high. People are not chasing blackouts anymore, but they're reaching for the cannabis. And folks, this is apparently a big problem for the alcohol industry. Many of them of which are complaining. They're going, why aren't you reaching for a Budweiser anymore? Why are you engaging in something that's not nearly as deadly on your liver?
Older folks are using can. Gen Z is using can because they are also like lower on alcohol these days, and millennials are definitely drinking their weed and like not so much alcohol. In fact, the alcohol companies are like trying to lobby to limit
weed drinks because their sales are genuinely being boned. The normalization of mental health and therapy is making people need to drink away their problems less. And I think that's like why we're here being like, all I need is 2 little milligrams. Like nobody needs to go out and black out anymore. Older folks are using.
I love that. I hate the casualization of it, but I'm happy that people are just mentally healthy. I hate when things become casual because they're not cool anymore. There's no mystique around them. You know, you actually have to have a personality. And I struggle to have a personality. So just like this Georgia teacher caught smoking a THC vape in the school bathroom. This poor lady. Guys, leave her alone. Lainey Scott? I'm not going to reveal her name. She doesn't deserve it. Rockstar Games had another hacking, ladies and gentlemen. We're moving into the rapid fire section of today's headlines. We're just throwing a bunch of stories at you to keep your media diet healthy. Apparently, hackers, Shiny Hunters, are a prolific group of English-speaking cybercriminals thought to be in their teens. They specialize in data theft and extortion, and they have hacked Rockstar Games. It's apparently not going to affect the release date of GTA 6, so who gives a fuck? Mamdani has recently come out. Apparently, he's moving forward with this grocery store project. It's not going to be a free grocery store. He said it's just going to be cheaper. Margaret Thatcher quote he brought out during one of his speeches recently. He mispronounced her goddamn name.
I have thought often of the Margaret Thatcher quote.
Chafter.
The problem with socialism is that you eventually run out of other people's money.
Yeah?
If anything, my friends, it seems that you eventually need a socialist to clean up the mess.
What? What? Okay, it makes perfect sense to me. If you don't understand it, you're just leagues behind him. You are not caught up. A 16-year-old boy has been charged with the murder and aggravated sexual abuse in the death of his stepsister during a family cruise, the Department of Justice announced Monday. Anna Kepner, 18 years old, died on the Carnival cruise ship Horizon in November. While the ship was in international waters and heading to Miami, prosecutors say the DOJ alleged that the stepbrother sexually assaulted and intentionally killed Kepner. Florida high school senior died from, quote, mechanical asphyxiations, officials are saying. ABC 7 Chicago reports. This is deeply tragic. Deeply, deeply so.
The teenager has been charged with killing his stepsister on a cruise and has just been indicted as an adult. The 16-year-old boy allegedly sexually abused and killed Anna Kepner while on a Carnival cruise with family members last November. The teen had been charged as a juvenile, but those charges have now been upgraded. The teen has not been publicly identified yet because he was initially charged as a minor. More on this as we get it in this morning.
It's oddly, weirdly enough, not the worst trip on a cruise story I've ever heard of. Like, listen, I understand it might not be a great way to end the Carnival cruise line. Like, oh yeah, your kids, they might have their arguments, their disagreements or whatever, but at least they're not doing that. You know what I mean? I'm just gonna say it though. There have been worse experiences on cruise lines, and I'm not talking about the shit cruise on Netflix. I'm talking about like people who have found fingers in their shrimp. You know, I'm just going to say it. There are nightmares on cruises, cruise lines in general. This is just another story to add to the pile. And oddly enough, this is not the worst story that we know about that has come from cruise lines. Ladies and gentlemen, let's cover our final story. Rest in peace, this lady. And her brother enjoy a cell probably next to Ghislaine Maxwell. I don't know. We're going to cover our final story. Some Americans are saying that even though tax day is coming up, they're refusing to pay federal taxes in protest against Trump. Not a great idea. This is not a guy. What are we talking about? Civil disobedience? No. In a new wave of quote-unquote civil disobedience gaining traction across the nation, this tax season, a growing number of Americans announced that they are formally refusing to pay their federal income taxes. The movement, which begun trending under various tax strike hashtags, is being framed by participants as a direct protest against the current administration's domestic and foreign policies. Organizers are arguing that withholding their financial support is the only remaining lever that they have to voice their opposition to recent excessive actions, particularly the ongoing military involvement in the Middle East, and a new federal border enforcement strategy. Listen. What you're setting yourself up for is a lengthy stay in jail. The tax resistance movement is not a new concept in American history. Legal experts, financial advisors, they all could issue you a stern warning about the severe consequences. The IRS has already signaled that they will not recognize the political protest as a valid legal excuse for non-payment. Individuals who will choose to withhold their taxes may face mounted interest, heavy financial penalties, and in extreme cases, federal criminal charges that can lead to imprisonment. Authorities have reminded the public that while the right to protest is protected, the legal obligation to fund the federal government remains absolute regardless of who occupies the White House. I get it. Listen, you might not like who sits in it, but you have to fund the chair. I understand that many people don't love it, but your guy will have their chance in it. Your pedophile will have the chance to occupy the chair next. It's just you have to wait for the competition of the pedophiles every 4 years. It's a big thing. We have to organize it. Shut up. We'll get to it. The surge in tax defiance is creating a complex political headache for both parties in Washington. Supporters of the movement claim that this conscious objection is necessary response to what they describe as a departure from traditional democratic norms. Meanwhile, critics are arguing that the move is dangerous for the financial anarchy that threatens the stability of essential public services, from infrastructure to Social Security. As of the April 15th filing deadline looming, the Treasury Department is reportedly monitoring for any significant revenue gaps that could indicate just how widespread this movement truly has become. Let's hear a little bit about NBC News and a little bit about it from NBC News, and I will release you to whatever your Tuesday demands from you.
Some Americans are protesting the war in Iran and President Trump's domestic policies by putting their money where their mouth is, as part of a call to sit out of paying federal taxes this year.
I'm Rachel, and I'm not paying my federal income tax this year.
It's time to stop paying our taxes.
Tax Strike 2026. Spread the word.
Bad idea.
On social media, people saying they'd rather put the money into a savings account, donate it to a charity, or simply keep it for themselves. Anything instead of handing it over to the federal government.
Bad idea.
It's called war tax resistance.
It's called actually libertarianism.
A type of protest that's been around in some forms since the colonial era, spiking around the Vietnam War when folk singer Joan Baez famously refused to pay 60% of her taxes, reportedly leading the IRS to file a lien against her.
This is just so that bitch could get rich.
Lawyers and accountants say following in her footsteps could land you in big trouble. The advocates say interest is now surging again.
Before the invasion of Gaza, we would typically have 40,000 unique users visit our site on an annual basis. This past January, we had the most visits to our website that we've ever had, over 110,000 unique users.
Lincoln Rice leads the National War Tax Resistance Coordinating Committee. The anti-war group has been around since the early 80s. It just recently held its largest ever training on just how to resist.
We offer War Tax Resistance 101 trainings. It'll cover the legal method, which would be essentially putting yourself in such a position as not to owe taxes.
Listen, I understand you might not love what you're funding. You gotta fund it. You have to. You have to. Listen, we funded Obama's escapades. We funded Bush's escapades. We have to fund the escapades of whoever is in power. Biden, listen, that's how it has run. That's how it always will run. I know that you don't love it. I know no one loves the fact that every tax dollar you send in some form has a percentage cut out of it for Israel. No one loves that. No one loves that. But it's a reality we all have to live with.
IRS tells us measuring the size and scope of this type of protest is not feasible only a month into the war. For some, it might mean pulling legal levers to lower their tax bill. For others, it goes a step further.
Essentially, we're going to strike. We're striking on taxes.
Neetu Sharma says she decided this year to stop withholding federal taxes from her paycheck.
Resisting is a privilege, and not everyone can resist in the same way. So having options and still being able to take action was great.
Her reason, she says, is where her tax dollars are going. Even before the war with Iran started,
we were sending a lot of funding and arms to other countries.
And I thought that I could use that for a handbag. I get it. Listen, some people are really concerned about the war, but I think some of these people are honestly just influencers who want to hold on to a bag.
instead of taking care of the people at home.
While it's impossible
Yeah,
to
at your
track
home.
exactly where your individual tax dollars go, last fiscal year, the Treasury says the federal government collected about half of its revenue from individual income taxes. About $900 billion went to defense, according to the Office of Management and Budget. It's the government's fifth biggest expense, behind other big-ticket items like Social Security, Medicare, interest on the national debt, and other health spending. Sharma says her protest isn't about avoiding taxes altogether.
I'm still paying state taxes, and I believe state taxes are something that we should continue paying.
Are you worried at all about going to jail, potentially?
I was at a point, the IRS does not have the manpower to go out and, audit every single person and...
Yes, they do. Yes, they do. The IRS... Listen, people like to say the best of the best is the FBI. The best of the best is the IRS. They will get their money. They will scrape it out of you. They will find it in every nook and cranny of your home. You cannot hide it under mattresses. It will be found, and they will snatch up their good percentage.
Paying federal taxes.
Sharma believes her approach is legal, but experts say not paying the taxes you owe is anything but.
The law does not care what your motive is for either not filing, not paying your taxes.
The IRS and legal experts say avoiding your taxes could land you with a laundry list of penalties, including fees, getting your passport revoked, and in some cases, jail time.
If you were to offer any sort of legal advice to some of these protesters, what would you tell them?
I would tell them, push a candle through a paper plate and go to a vigil and sing. Don't refuse to pay your taxes. That will land you in prison.
So as this protest gains traction online, the real consequences may happen offline when taxes are due.
Well,
Allie Canal, NBC News.
Thank you, Allie Canal. We appreciate it. Folks, if you decide not to pay your taxes, you can tell me how it goes. Honestly, this is a very colonial era type of protest. We're going no taxation, no representation. We're going to just, we don't agree with the war that's happening, so we're just not going to pay our taxes. Has that worked in the past before? Will it ever work in the future? I severely, severely doubt it. This is maybe a few thousand people you'll get to do it. I severely doubt that. Maybe even 100. It is pushing it into the furthest stretches. But folks, if you decide not to, I don't know what else to say except for Uncle Sam may pay you a visit in a little while. He might not get around to you for a while, but he will eventually come to take what his percentage is. He'll get his grimy little mitts on it. Believe it or not, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. I had such a wonderful time collecting these stories for you. I hope you had a wonderful time listening to them. I will be back tomorrow to report whatever news they have to talk about. I cannot wait to discuss whatever there is that I can sift out of the mines. I can find the best pieces of gold for you. But in the meantime, ladies and gentlemen, I have been Ollie Vogt Larson with your Brain on Air. Thank you so much for listening. I appreciate you. I hope that you're here for the next broadcast. Subscribe if you want more, like if you liked it. In the meantime, be there for the Wednesday broadcast. This has been Ollie Vogt Larson with your Brain on Air. Thank you so much for listening, and bye-bye.